Let's close out this masterpiece, because this is the culmination of a lot of sacrifice in the beginning. And now we can kind of see their great, big, beautiful tomorrow. So if you look at what happens as we walk towards retirement, you can say, look, it doesn't have to always be, rainbows and unicorns. What we have here with Maddie and Manny is that at age 60, the brother-in-law put them in an investment. He sold them something.
They saw that they were successful. They said, hey,
we
you
don't
got
want
some
to
money
disappoint the relatives either. That consideration element of love really kind of clouds the eyesight sometimes in the vision of what you should do. But they put $100,000 into an investment with the brother-in-law, and unfortunately, it went to zero. But that's okay. They did get a moment at age 72 to celebrate. They paid off their low-interest mortgage. And then we get the gold watch moment at age 65 where they have both retired. So that's some pretty exciting stuff.
It's super exciting. When you actually look at the money and how the money played out, again, they followed the financial order of operations. They were still putting money in their 401k. They were still doing a health savings account. They were still doing a Roth IRA. And they were still saving in their taxable brokerage account. Even though we had this misstep where he took $100,000 of investment assets, put it in a bad investment, went away, because he had built up such a healthy foundation of assets, that negative decision did not derail them. So there were some exciting takeaways, even that took place in the last 5 years of their working life.
I think it's kind of interesting. When we were modeling all this scenario out, yes, they paid off the house at age 62. And then you probably notice, and if you look on the illustration here, they actually boosted their savings for retirement. Was that even necessary? That's the question we even asked ourselves in the content meeting. But it's more about not these additional savings. It's also controlling your consumption as you're approaching retirement. Because if you realize every time you move the goalpost and you expand your lifestyle, whether it's the cars you drive, the house you live, there are ripple effects into your future decisions. So I think it's kudos to them that they stayed conservative even after they paid the house off, because they were thinking about where do we want to be as we enter retirement.
Yeah, there are some huge takeaways that happen. Now, they're thinking about not can we retire? Are we going to be okay? They're thinking about what do we value? What brings us fulfillment? Where do we want to spend our time? How do we want to spend this next season of our life? We've solved the math problem. Now, how do we solve the problem of how do we want to spend our time? And there's some things we know that if you want to have a happy and successful retirement, there are some things you can focus on to make that so.
Yeah, I mean, know where you're going to. You're not what you're running from. And that's why you need to have 3 or 4 core pursuits. What are your hobbies? What are you going to do actually once you leave the workforce? Do you have a routine that's going to keep you active where you wake up in the morning and feel like in your own small way you still have purpose and you're making the world a better place? And do you have good relationships? There's so much research on happiness out there that talks about your community. We're talking about your friends, your family, your church life or spiritual life. You have to wake up with that sense of purpose.
I love it. The other thing that they've done is they made sure that as they got to retirement, as they shifted from accumulation to now decumulation, living off of their assets, they now have 18 to 36 months of living expenses in cash in their portfolio. So while their emergency fund used to be 6 months, they recognize that has to shift. And in their 60s, with their portfolio allocation, they actually made the shift to make that so.
Yeah, so their hard work is paid off. They've got their blossoming memories. They've got a nice net worth statement sitting out there that's got a lot of fruits in that. But as you saw, as we walked through this case study, it was not an easy journey. There was lots of obstacles, but there was still success at the end of their great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
And what's great is as they worked through the financial order of operations, at the end, they actually graduated through it. As they got to retirement, as they got all the debt paid off, they were in step 9. They did it. They solved it. So the question you're probably asking is, all right, they did this for their whole life. What does it look like? Now, one of the things we did is we took Manny and Maddie from age 22 all the way out to age 65. We understand that money in the future won't be worth the same as money today. So we thought it might be valuable as we show you the payoff, as we explain to you where they are, we brought everything back to today's dollar. So that way it's something we can actually wrap our heads around, wrap our minds around. So this is in today's dollars, their journey to abundance, what retirement looks like. In today's dollars, if we assume that they averaged about 3% inflation over their working lives, they got to the end of their retirement or beginning of their retirement, end of their working career with a final portfolio value of $3.9 million in today's dollars.
Yeah, I mean that's a chunk of money. I mean that is $1 million times 4 in a lot of ways. That's pretty incredible. Their final salary, close to $250,000.
And that's for a house. Remember, these are two folks who started their careers at $50,000 each, so $100,000. And by the end of their career, they had grown their total household income to $242,000 after 43 years. So that's a great income increase. But they put the time in. They're financial mutants who advanced in their careers and got to that stage.
And then their spending's going to be, if you think about it, if you don't have any debt to pay for, now this is just true money you get to consume. Close to $146,000 or a little over $12,000 a month.
That's what they were spending.
That's pretty incredible.
That's what they were spending immediately prior to retirement. So that's the number they're thinking about they want to replace. Well, if you look at their portfolio value of $3.9 million. Oh,
it's even better.
And they assume a 4% withdrawal rate, they could actually pull out $157,000 a year of the portfolio in perpetuity. Well, they were only spending $145,000 prior to retirement. So they are able to replace 108% of their pre-retirement spending. If you add what their estimated Social Security benefits will be to that, that's going to be almost 130% of their pre-retirement spending. This is a life where they were able to retire and they didn't have to change their lifestyle. They didn't have to cut back. They didn't have to script. They got to live the life that they wanted to live on their terms. And what I think is beautiful, Brian, is it wasn't a straight shot. It wasn't point A to point B. It was a real life lived.
Well, and look, we could have had them pay off their mortgage earlier.
Sure.
We could have had them retire a few years earlier because as this shows, when you look at their expenses, their actual retirement withdrawal rate is going to exceed what their actual expenses were at retirement. We had some extra in there, but that's okay because they had extra even with all the obstacles out there. And here's what I would want everybody who stayed with us through this whole case study, because we want to show you, don't fall for all the hogwash out there in social media world. This is what a life well lived and being disciplined, living on less than you make, building that margin into money that gets invested, and then give it enough time to let it bear fruit for you. But remember, your obstacles are going to be different. Everybody's on their own personal journey. That's why it's personal finance. Every one of you has something special, unique going on. And that's why there are an infinity ways to reach success. Your journey is going to look different, but I want you to know it's possible. All you have to do is know the system that will tell you what to do with your next dollar. And that's exactly what we've tried to create with the Financial Order of Operations.